Shalom everyone. We're just a few days from the beginning of Pesach. And like last year, I want to spend a little bit of time with you sharing some of the wonderful insights into the Haggadah. You know, as I said last year, and as I say every year, the Haggadah is not only meant to be read, it's meant to be studied, it's meant to be discussed. It's meant to take us into what may well be the greatest story ever told, at least in terms of our narrative, in terms of the Jewish narrative. It was the intention from the very beginning that people would discuss the seder. How do we know it? Well, we know that the seder was modeled on the Greek symposium. What happened at a Greek symposium? Well, they would gather around and relax and eat, but the subject of the evening became the source of discussion. They chose a topic, had some wine, ate a little bit, discussed a little bit, ate a little bit, drank a little bit, discussed a little bit, but they spent the evening on the theme. Back and forth, trying to analyze it, dissect it, and hopefully come to a fuller understanding of what the theme they were discussing would mean for them in their lives. We do the very same thing with the Haggadah. I learned last week that over the course of the last 500 years, there have been approximately 7,000 different editions of the Haggadah. Not of the text so much, but of the Haggadah. Only in the last 20 years have there been a wide variety of new Haggadahs of specific interest. But for about 500 years, same text, but what the editors did was to add commentary, add discussion points, add illumination, and I mean visual illumination as well as the illumination that comes from trying to point people into the text so that they could get into the meaning of what's written in the Haggadah. That's what I'd like to do. I've prepared 2 sessions, one using the Haggadah commentary that I've compiled, just a little bit of it for this year. And the second one, well, you'll hear when that begins what I've chosen for the second session. As we begin, towards the beginning of the Seder, as I'm sure you know, we're told, following the breaking of the middle matzah, that we come to the Magid section, the Passover story. And what do we say? We say, Ha-lachma anya. This is the bread of affliction, the bread of poverty, which our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. All who are hungry, let them come and eat. All who are needy, let them come and celebrate Passover. Now we are here. Next year we will be in the land of Israel. Now we are slaves. Next year we will be free. This one brief paragraph, written, by the way, in Aramaic, looks like Hebrew, but it is Aramaic, which was the lingua franca of the Jewish people 2,000 years ago, the spoken language. Many of our sacred texts are written in Aramaic. So this is the bread of poverty, the bread of affliction. We hold it up. And what do we take from this? It's reminding us that we are a part of that history. That here in the year 2012 or 5772, there is a straight line which connects us back over 3,000 years ago, maybe about 3,300 years ago, to this very experience. Halach ma'anya. This is the bread of affliction that our ancestors ate. And what we hope to do is to show in the Haggadah, beginning with this, that story, that narrative, that time in history which is for us our memory, that is connected to us all these years later. That we are drawn to that because it is a part of who we have always been as a people. So we invite people, as it says, those who are hungry, those who are afflicted. Why do we do that? First commentary. What does our ancestor, the father of the Jewish people, do? What do we learn about Avraham in the Torah? That he was very committed to fulfilling the mitzvah of Hachnasat Orchim, of welcoming into his tent the wayfarer, those who were hungry, the traveler. So we continue doing what Avraham did so many hundreds and hundreds of years ago, again, back over 3,000 years ago, even before Egypt. We continue that as we begin the Seder. Now, many of you, of course, will know that following the 4 questions, we usually say, we always say, for that matter, Avadim hayinu lefaro b'Mitzrayim. We were slaves of Pharaoh in Egypt. Now, that is one beginning to the Seder story. There's another one. The other one is that long, long ago, our forefathers were worshippers of idols. 2 beginnings, same story. And I want to explain why. What we learn in the Talmud is that when it comes to the Seder, we have to begin with the lowest point in Jewish life. And then go to that point in which we have achieved victory and there is reason to give praise. Well, what's the lowest point? 2 rabbis disagreed. One said the lowest point in our history starts with the time of slavery in Egypt. And another one said, no, you have to go further back. Because it was even in the time before Avraham, and just when he came around, that our forefathers were worshippers of idols. So that was a low point. But no matter where you begin, what our tradition says is that you have to end at a high point. You have to end at a time of victory, something that really causes us to celebrate. And that's what the Haggadah does. It takes us from this low point all the way to that time when, after a few pages, maybe more than a few pages of the Haggadah, we're ready to be thankful to God for the journey that we've taken from the low point to the high point. And I think the point that we all agree on is that that's the course of Jewish history. That we always believe that no matter where we are, or no matter where our ancestors saw themselves being, they always thought that from there they could go higher. That somehow they could ascend once again. And that's one of the reasons that we are still around. This belief of the Jewish people that the low points pass, and once again we begin the climb to something better. In the Haggadah, you know that when we come to the mentioning of the 10 plagues, we take a drop of wine from the cup of wine for each plague. Dam, Svardeya, Kinim, and we take a drop from the cup of wine, and we put that drop of wine on a plate. And I think many of you know that there's a reason we do it, because there is a principle in Jewish law that we should not rejoice at the downfall even of our enemies. In Judaism, what our rabbis forbade was that German phrase Schadenfreude, which means finding joy, becoming happy at the expense of others, at the downfall of others, at the pain and agony of others. So even though the Egyptians had oppressed our people, we have a certain sensitivity, a certain empathy towards them, and we take from the cup of wine a drop with the mention of each plague, because Schadenfreude is prohibited in Judaism. We don't take satisfaction over the pain of others. That's not our way. There's a wonderful teaching that says that when God wants to measure how big someone is, he doesn't measure the height. He measures the heart. And when we take a drop of wine to reduce symbolically our celebration, we're saying that our heart is big enough to understand that there is no rejoicing in the pain of any person, even those who were once our enemies. A little bit later in the Haggadah, we come to the symbols of the Pesach. You know, Rabban Gamliel, one of the great rabbis of approximately 2,000 years ago, Rabban Gamliel said that we have to teach at the seder three symbols. Pesach, about the Paschal offering, the Passover offering, the lamb, the matzah, okay, and the maror, and the maror. And I want to talk to you about each one of them. First, about the Pesach. You know, when our ancestors celebrated Pesach, what did they do? They celebrated by families just like we celebrate as family. But they brought together a lamb. The whole family came to Jerusalem with one lamb, offered it for Passover, consumed it the night of the seder, and they learned from that they are connected to family. There was no such thing as celebrating Pesach by oneself. You had to be connected to your family. It is the great family day, the great family festival from its very, very beginning. But when we look at that Pesach on our Seder table, which is symbolized by the shank bone, what it tells us is that we are more than individuals. We are part of a family. Then there is the matzah. Now, what is the symbolism of matzah? Matzah is flat. It's simple. There's nothing special about it. It is what it is. And matzah reminds us that at some time in our life, what we want to do is realize that we need not puff ourselves up to make ourselves more than we are. That sometimes who we are is enough. We don't have to make ourselves bigger just to impress someone. And finally, the maror, reminding us not only of the bitterness of the slaves in Egypt, but reminding us that there is a bitterness in this world today, a sadness for so many, and we can never, ever lose touch with that. I'll be back with another session. I hope you'll return.